Good day, dear cadets. The topic of today's presentations will be International Maritime Organization. The Maritime Organization is a United Nations specialized agency with responsibility for the safety and security of shipping and the prevention of marine pollution by ships. Member governments use International Maritime Organization to draw up internationally agreed standards that can be applied to all ships sailing in the oceans. We sum up our mission as a safe, secure, and efficient shipping on cleaner oceans. It's very important to understand and remember this goal of International Maritime Organization. Originally, the organization is known as a IMO, International Maritime Consultative Organization, which was established by means of convention that was adopted in Geneva 1948. The convention received enough signatures to enter into force 10 years later in 1958. And the first meeting of IMO was held in London in 1959. International Maritime Organization has always been headquartered in London, being based at a variety of different addresses before moving to its present home in 1982. The headquarters building was purpose-built for IMO by the United Kingdom government. So, and as you see, the first IMO meeting was, just created in 1959. The need for IMO, it's very high. The need for international agency for shipping stems from the fact that the shipping is the most international of all world's global industries, with many different countries are involved in the construction, ownership, operation of the vessel, manning, survey, and inspections. Its global importance cannot be underestimated, as it literally underpins world trade and the global economy. And usually its prime assets, the ships themselves, move between countries and between different jurisdictions. Hence the need for universal standards that can be applied to and recognized by all countries. Shipping is also an inherently dangerous occupation, with ships having to confront the worst that the elements can throw at them. Sometimes disaster strikes, as witnessed by high-profile incidents such as those involving ships such as Tory Canyon, Briar, and Erika. Very often the lesson from such incidents are used by International Maritime Organization to make improvements in the international regulatory framework. It's very important to remember that every rule is written, every word of every rule is written by somebody's blood. It's very pity to say that, but it's real and it's true. It has long been recognized that the best way of improving safety at sea is by developing international regulations that can be followed by all shipping nations. From the mid-19th century onwards, a number of such treaties were adopted. One example is the 1863 Rules of the Road at Sea, known as Articles, which were adopted by more than 30 different maritime nations. It was the Titanic disaster of 1911 which prompted the adoption of the first international convention for the safety of life at sea, known then as now as SOLAS, S-O-L-A-S, Safety of Life at Sea. SOLAS Convention was adopted in 1914 after the United Kingdom had called an international conference in the wake of Titanic disaster. It was the first convention to lay down international rules governing safety of shipping, including construction of ships, maintaining a 24-hour listening watch for distress alerts, and making sure enough lifeboats and life jackets are on board for all persons on board. Today, albeit much revised and updated, SOLAS Convention remains the most important of the international conventions regulating maritime safety. More than 150 countries are parties to the SOLAS Convention, and its provision apply to more than 98% of the world fleet. Of course, it wasn't until the establishment of the United Nations itself that a permanent international body was established to promote maritime safety more effectively. IMO became as an agency of United Nations. IMO is one of the smallest United Nations agencies, headquartered, as we said already, in London. With an annual budget of less than 20 million pounds and around 300 staff in the Secretariat. There are some 50 nationalities represented on the staff in 6 divisions: maritime safety, marine environment, legal and external relations, technical cooperation, administrative, and conference. IMO is financed by the world's shipping nations. Unusually for other UN agencies, the greater part of the IMO budget is contributed by less developed countries. As you see on this table, there are Panama, Liberia, Bahamas, most important in financial matter countries for the IMO. So why it happened so? It happened so because of the changes that have occurred in shipping over the last 50 years. In particular, the open registry system. This means that some of the biggest contributors to the budget are now drawn from the less developed countries such as Panama, Liberia, and Bahamas, because these countries, they created a largest official registered fleet. IMO now has 175 member states and 3 associate members, which includes virtually all of the nations of the world with interest in maritime affairs, be they involved in the shipping industry or coastal states with the interest in protecting their maritime environment. In addition, a number of intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations representing a wide variety of interests ranging from industry sectors to environmental groups have consultative status with organizations and can attend meetings. Their input in the whole process of developing and refining international standards for shipping is greatly valued. So you can imagine the organizations like Greenpeace. Yeah? So this is one of the examples of non-governmental organizations. So how does IMO work? IMO IMO's main ruling body is Assembly, which consists of all member states and meets every 2 years. The Assembly is responsible for approving the organization's work program, voting the budget, and determining the financial agreements of the organization. So, then there is a council, which is made up of 40 member states elected by the Assembly. It oversees the work of the organization between assembly sessions, so during these 2 years. The technical work of the organization is carried out by the series of committees to which the member states send their experts as appropriate. The title of the committees clearly reflects their area of expertise and responsibility. As you see, there are Maritime Safety, Marine Environment Protection, Legal Committee, Technical Cooperation and Facilitation Committee. There are these 6 main committees. So then, working to the committees are a series of subcommittees, each with a very specific area of responsibility and expertise. So the job, the work is getting narrow and narrow and narrow. So meetings of committees and subcommittees usually last for a week or more, and there are on average around 25 such meetings each year. As you see the list of subcommittees, they are covering almost all, we can say all areas of the maritime businesses. Let me give you an idea how measures progress through the IMO machinery. Any IMO member state can propose a new regulation or amendment to existing one. It might arise from an incident or simply from an idea or technical development. The member states first put its proposal to a relevant IMO committee. The committee would then discuss the proposal, and if it was considered to have merit, might decide to refer it to a subcommittee for more detailed consideration. For more complex issues, a working group or correspondence group might be established to work on the issue at an even more intense technical level. After appropriate discussion in these for a detailed draft, whether it for a new measure, an amendment to an existing measure, a code of practice, guidelines, or circular, it grown up, ready for consideration and approval at the appropriate level. This explains the process in the simplest of terms. Depending on the complexity of the issue, some measures can be quickly agreed and adopted, while others require more time. IMO member states undertake to put into practice the measures they develop and adopt at IMO. That is why the organization always aims to adopt measures by consensus, as this way ensures the widest possible implementation by the member states. So, as we see, the process is going sometimes in this way. So what we have? We have incident, which is, generating idea, some development of regulation, then the proposal to IMO goes to IMO committee. So what happened next? Discussion. Discussion can be made in the committee or sent to subcommittee, or it can be created a working group. So working group develop a draft, regulation, circular, code or resolution. All of them are type of different documents. So, and after the fully taking agreement, the adoption of new regulation can happen. Of course, what really counts is the application of IMO. IMO measures aboard real ships, so such as the bulk carrier, the general cargo vessel, the passenger ship, or oil tanker. So, how it works? So, the SOLAS convention covers 98.79% of world tonnage. So it's fluctuating plus minus, but anyway it's around 100%. Same for the Load Lines Convention, MARPOL Convention, COLREX, and STCW. Also, we have a so let me explain that there are more than 40 different IMO conventions, different treaties. So we use as instruments and hundreds of other measures such as protocols, guidelines, recommended practices, and so on. Between them, they influence almost every aspect of shipping and shipping operation, including ship design, ship construction, equipment of the vessels, maintenance, and manning. Broadly speaking, the main IMO conventions fall into 4 categories. Those dealing with safety and security include the safety of life at sea, which is generally considered to be the most important of all international treaties concerning the safety of merchant ships. Among the topics covered in its chapters are shipping construction, subdivision and stability, fire protection, life-saving appliances and arrangements, radio communications, safety of navigation, carriage of cargoes and dangerous goods, so on. So there are a lot of other topics. Other includes the Convention of Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Seafarers, the Load Lines Convention, the Collision Regulation or COLREG, and the so-called SUA conventions, which are legal instruments aimed to ensuring that appropriate actions is taken against persons committing unlawful acts against ships, such as seizure of ships by force, acts of violence against persons on board, the placing of devices on board a ship which are likely to destroy or damage it. So another set of conventions are designed to prevent pollution of the marine environment. Prime among these is the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, or so-called MARPOL, which has 6 annexes dealing with oil pollution, pollution by chemicals carried in bulk, harmful substances in packaged form, sewage, garbage, and air pollution. Other includes conventions on the dumping of wastes at sea, on the rights of coastal states to intervene of their coastline is under the threat of pollution following upon a marine casualty. On the use of the certain toxic substances in ships, anti-fouling paint, and on ballast water management. So these are a group of conventions which are taking care about the ecology questions, environmental protection questions, and so on. So, broadly speaking, the measures we have covered so far are designed to prevent accidents from occurring. But we have to recognize that despite everyone's best efforts, accidents do occur. So another series of conventions have been developed that are designed to ensure a proper response to minimize the negative repercussions when accidents do happen. The most important consideration is the protection of human life. Of course, human life is the most important point. And to this end, the International Convention on Marine Search and Rescue, so-called SAR Convention, SAR, enshrines an international SAR plan to ensure that no matter where an incident occurs, rescue operations will be coordinated by a proper search and rescue organization, and when necessary, by cooperation between neighboring SAR organizations, SAR organizations. Let's get known with the SAR abbreviation. Other mentions in this category include the OPRC Convention, Oil Pollution Preparedness, Response and Cooperation, which establishes measures for dealing with the pollution incidents either nationally or in cooperation with other countries, and its related protocol dealing with hazardous and noxious substances. Finally, we have to deal with the aftermath of casualties, and for this we have developed a series of conventions to cover questions of liability and establish compensation regimes for victims of pollution incidents and accidents. This includes the International Convention on Civil Liability for Oil Pollution Damage, CLC, the International Fund for Compensation for Oil Pollution Damage, IOPC, the Athens Convention relating to the carriage of passengers and their luggage by sea, and its 2002 protocol, which totally revised the original convention. The International Convention of Civil Liability for Bunker Oil Pollution Damage, and International Convention on Liability and Compensation for Damage in connection with the carriage of hazardous and noxious substances, HNC Convention. So as you see, all these conventions are kept up to date with the limits of liability increased where appropriate to match changing demands and expectations. So, next question, implementation. So, who is responsible of the implementation of all these, huge body of the regulations? The member states of IMO use the organization to agree standards covering all aspects of marine business, marine safety, maritime security, and pollution prevention for international shipping. The responsibility for implementing the standards agreed and adopted by IMO rests with the member states themselves. So what does it mean? It means every country undertake to ensure that ships flying their flag simply with provisions of the IMO conventions to which they are party. Many of them choose to delegate the survey and inspection of vessels, so-called recognized organizations, such as classification societies. So they created a voluntary audit scheme, and they also, under the IMO convention, was created port state control. IMO itself has no policy mandate to act intergovernmentally or directly with governments. Every government, every state is responsible for own legislation system. One of the most important tools at IMO's disposal is its program of technical cooperation. The organization recognizes that not all of its members have the same capacity to fulfill their obligations as parties to the various conventions, often because they lack resources and expertise. The Technical Cooperation Program aims at redressing this resource imbalance by assessing the needs of countries and matching them to expertise, funding, and training made available for donor countries and organizations. So we see that there is a resource imbalance in the world. So there is a strong demand or strong needs for assessment and assistance. So it works as a donors, expertise, funding, and training. So the system creates a World Maritime University, so where all member states can send their students to learn, to make educated, professionals. Having looked at how IMO operates in broad terms, let's turn now to specific areas of IMO's work that are currently high on the agenda. In the light of terrorist atrocities around the world, several of which have been aimed at transport infrastructures, IMO adopted a comprehensive set of maritime security measures in 2002, which came into force in July 2004. The most important and far-reaching of this is the International Ship and Port Facility Convention, code, ISPS code. Among its requirements are that governments should undertake risk assessment to establish the level of security threat in their ports, that both ships and ports should appoint dedicated security officers and have formal security plans drawn up and approved by their governments. Other measures amendments adopted simultaneously include a requirement for ships to fit security alert system and acceleration of the introduction of automatic identification systems for ships. So, piracy. 24th Assembly adopted a resolution on piracy and aimed robbery against ships in waters off the coast of Somalia, calling for the issue to be brought to the attention of the United Nations Security Council. The resolution was submitted to the Assembly at the recommendation of IMO Secretary General Eftimos E. Metropoulos, following its approval. In principle, at the meeting of the IMO Council which preceded the Assembly. So let's make a break for this first part of the presentation of IMO, and we will continue in the second part of the presentation.